Hi everyone, welcome. Before we begin, I want to dedicate this workshop to my dear friend Virgelina Chara, who passed away 2 days ago. Virgelina was a human rights defender, community organizer, popular educator, and a truly next system builder who devoted her life to advocating for others. She put herself and her own life on the front lines to defend the rights of the victims of Colombia. She was generous, courageous, and deeply inspiring. May you rest in power, beautiful queen. You will profoundly be missed. All right. Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. Before we dive into our workshop, we would like to re-invite you, please, to share a brief intro about yourself in the chat, your name, where are you joining us from, what brings you here to this space. This will help us to have a sense of who is in the room and the experiences we are bringing in this process from different parts of the world. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping for this meeting, housekeeping rules for these meetings. So this meeting will last 1 hour and 15 minutes with an additional 15 minutes of optional discussion at the end for whomever has the time to remain in the meeting to have like a more profound, deep discussion. We will have simultaneous live interpretation. Thank you, Adriana and Satya, to enable it. Please, to enable this option, please click on the globe-shaped interpretation icon on the Zoom toolbar and select your preferred language. That's all you have to do. So we kindly ask you as well to please keep your microphone muted while others are presenting and talking, and use the chat or reactions for comments and questions. Also, please note that this session will be recorded. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And with that, I'll pass it to you, April.
Great. And do you want to share the slides, Daisy?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for making time today to be here. Happy spring and also happy belated Earth Day. So we're really, really stoked to have a chance to kick off the Next System Teach-In Organizer Workshop series, building momentum towards a global wave of Next System Teach-Ins in April of 2027. So we thought that the best way to kick off this series of spaces to support locally led, globally linked organizing around the possibility of a next system was to begin with hearing from those who took the lead in November for our last wave of teach-ins to bring people together in their places to think about what different kind of system, what kind of different world and community is possible. So just real quickly, wanted to head off with, what is this idea of a next system? And let's see, do we have the slide? Can we go forward? Yes, thank you so much. So Next System is a framework that was developed decades ago, but made popular by political historian and economist Gar Alperovitz, along with Gus Speth. And it really asks the question of, if we don't want corporate capitalism and we don't want state socialism, what is possible in between those? What else is possible, right? Those aren't the only options. And it really gives us an opportunity to think about the many, many alternatives that are available and possible. It's a pluralistic framework. One of the things I love about it, that not only are we looking at the issues we face right now systemically, right, not as sort of individual issues, looking deeper to what is the system issues, that we need to address, and then what are the systemic solutions. But it lifts up alternatives that in many cases are already being developed around us in our own communities and globally. So those include things like, they go by many names, right? But solidarity economy, just transition, abolition, right? These many different ways people have been experimenting with and naming the ways that they would like to reorganize society to be democratic, just, and sustainable. And I also want to name that, not only are many already here and in motion, but many are not necessarily new, right? There's cultures and communities that have been, despite all odds, retaining more cooperative and equitable ways of organizing our economies, our communities, our homes, our neighborhoods, despite the onslaught, right, of an extractive economic and political system. So next slide. And real quick too, as well, a quick word about Next System Studies and Center for Next System Studies. Our work is really rooted in how do we put the work of the academy and the university into the service of this question, right, of building a just, sustainable, and democratic world that serves everyone. And working in direct partnership with people in movement spaces, in communities who are also doing this work. And the Teach-Ins has been a historic vehicle, right, for mobilizing communities, for mobilizing even countries around important questions of the moment, going back, of course, to the anti-Vietnam War, organizing back in the 1960s. They're really a way to bring diverse voices from all camps, from all lives, both in campuses, but also beyond, to take responsibility together, to understand, to learn about, and then take action collectively around issues of the moment that really matter. So these have also can be traced back to the environmental movement, the feminist movement, movement for Black lives, more recently, movement around anti-corporatization and democracy in the 90s and the 2000s. Also, Earth Day, which we are celebrating, came out of Teach-Ins. So that's a cool thing to think about. And just want to note that these historically have been campus-based, but also community-based. So when we're talking about Teach-Ins, we can be very imaginative about what those look like. And I will pass it over to Daisy to talk more about the Next System Teach-Ins.
Yeah, I'm having some issues to share my slides. Gabe, do you think you could help me with that, please? You're muted.
I can open the slides and share them. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So yeah, the Next System Teach-Ins is a process that creates community-wide spaces for education, reflection, and debate about deep systemic change. The Next System Teach-Ins are based in the premise that our current system is not working, is failing communities across the world, is causing intertwined social, political, economical, and ecological crisis. In response, the Teach-Ins ask whether, by taking this crisis seriously, we can work together to build a world that is more democratic, sustainable, and just. The Next System Teach-Ins also insist that systemic crises require systemic solutions. This is also a movement that seeks to bring people together to challenge the current system by truly understanding the crisis of our time, learning from social movements, studying and fostering emerging alternatives around the world, and most importantly, taking responsibility for system change. Well, we call it, as April already explained, we call it Teach-Ins because they invite everyone in a given broader community that could be, or that has the shape or a campus or institution or organization, a neighborhood, a city, or a region. Bringing this into a shared learning space, they bring people from different contexts and struggles together to grapple key issues and take responsibility for true change. They are also designed as a process for surfacing and weaving together local possibilities, fostering shared learning, collaboration, and expansion of work that is already happening. but that often remains unlinked or even unseen. This initiative includes multiple global waves of activity. The official first wave happened in 2016 in Santa Barbara. We have another wave in last November in 2025. This wave happened across the Americas, and we will have a new wave in April 2025, which will be on a global scale.
Daisy, I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to fix the slides because it doesn't appear to be in full screen.
We can see them, don't worry.
Okay, does it show like it shows my browser though, right? Like it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna see if it'll let me.
That's fine. I think that's okay.
Are you sure?
Yes,
Okay, awesome.
it's visible. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Gabe.
cool. Mhm.
Well, now let's get into the first topic for this workshop. This is the first session in a series of Next System Teachings Organizer workshops. As we build toward the next global wave of Next System Teachings in April 2027, the Center for Next System Studies is launching these sessions to energize, inform, and showcase the work of local teachings organizers and their teams. Participants in these interactive workshops will gain information, tools, and strategies tailored to the work you are doing on your campus or in your community, in your neighborhood, to foster learning, collaboration, and action toward a just, democratic, and sustainable next system. These workshops are also meant to be spaces for connection, reflection, collective learning that center the experiences of the people advancing this local work from different communities of practice. So for this first workshop, we'll reflect on the 2025 teachings wave and the work ahead for April 2025. So the idea is to explore how our organizers from the 2025 wave advanced the birth of the next system in their own areas, share key lessons and advice for new organizers. And this also discuss what emerged from these moments as we map our collective plans towards 2027. This is also space to connect the dots between local action and long-term strategy and strengthen the infrastructure for the next wave of organizing. So we thank you again to all of our 2025 Next System Teachings organizers. Thank you for being here, and for the new people who are willing to learn about how these experiences went last year. Also, we welcome you to be active participants of this conversation. Thank you so much. So to start the conversation, we are proposing the following guiding questions for the speakers, for the organizers. This set of questions are only, a guide, but of course you can add your own thoughts and other questions that you may have. So what was the focus of your teaching and how did you organize it? How did it help advance what is in motion or your work in your region? What has come out of your teaching? What learnings, lessons are you putting into motion for April 2027? And what advice do you have for new organizers, other organizers who might be participants in this call? Okay, on that note, I'll turn it over to GMU, who is the first in the list, I think, to start us off with the conversation. Thank you. So who's talking
I
for
think
GMU?
there are three of us who were ready to report. So I don't know if Alyssa or Gabriel wanted to go first or not, but we can be very brief. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Ben, you can go ahead. I'm gonna try and fix these slides so they're full screen.
Okay, sounds good. So as people here can see, and it's really wonderful to be here with all of you who are organizers and scholars and both. We have a Next System Studies program at George Mason University that is going into its sixth year now. It's quite active. And so the teach-in for us was an opportunity for us to do something a little different, which was to do more work in terms of building relationships at George Mason University, which is the largest public university in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Because we do a lot of work in partnership with community organizations, worker co-ops, unions, and so on. And so this was an opportunity for us to really teach in, to build relationships between students, faculty, staff, alum, community members. And it was great. And so as a result of that, we have many more people involved in Next System work at George Mason University than we did before. We learned a lot of new things. We have very strong relationships with our unions, which we did not have before, which is very important at this moment, particularly the American Association of University Professors, and other unions that are organizing now. And we're gearing up for April 2027. Gabriel has been central to some of that work, but we are putting together a coalition that is campus and community based. And we're looking forward to something on a much larger scale. Our teaching involved several hundred people in various events. And we're looking to do something that hasn't been seen at GMU, I don't think ever, something that brings in thousands of people through various kinds of events next April. I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I can pick up, Alyssa, if you don't mind, on the teach-in for 2027. We just, we're getting the planning off just recently. But I think the focus this time around, because last teach-in was faculty and the relationships we can build within the university. Um, Now, I think for 2027, we want to put more of a focus on students and their organizations, their self-organization. Um, and luckily, GMU has a very vibrant student organization community, whether that's SJP or Jewish Voices for Peace. There's just various RSOs there that we want to include to make sure these teach-ins are not just coming from the top down, from staff, from faculty, but from the students themselves that make up the university.
Yeah, thanks, Ben and Gabe. I echo everything that you all mentioned. I was just super thankful to be part of the teach-in. I learned so much from the other folks who were on the panel that I was on, and also some of the other panels throughout those sessions. And I think to just kind of build off of what Gabe was talking about, like this idea of really making sure that we're cultivating these relationships beyond just faculty, grad students, undergrads, the community, all these, kind of coalitions of like unions and movements that we've been working with specifically at GMU, but then kind of extending beyond those walls of the university too is what I think a lot of us are kind of working towards and looking at 2027 for. So I'm excited to continue to be part of that.
Yeah, and I was just reminded that we have enough lead time that we're able to coordinate. So we know that something that has happened a number of times called the Democratizing Northern Virginia Summit, that will take place at the same time as our teach-in. So that's much more community engaged. We can organize the teach-in. We have the Global South Conference that takes place here every year. These are all going to take place at the same time. Earth Day will be happening next year in the United States. May Day is going to be very significant. So we have a lot of lead time to weave all these different efforts together. I think that's it. I know we have a lot of reports. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Gabriel.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for sharing those insights, the lessons, and also the future plans. That sounds very exciting. Now I'll turn it over to Buenos Aires, Argentina. I know we have a few people in the stack. I'm not sure who is talking, but Ana Inés, I'll pass it to you.
Hola.
Siéntete libre a hablar en español si quieres.
Sí. Somos tres hoy, we're three people in the room. David y Pablo también están y seguramente van a hablar. Nuestra experiencia fue muy positiva porque logramos con el eje en el compostaje urbano, es decir, personas que reciclamos residuos orgánicos colectivamente como comunidad en un barrio, logramos conectarnos tanto con los barrios vecinos, con que ya veníamos estableciendo conexiones, pero el evento que hicimos le dio más fuerza, como con la materia que yo enseño en la universidad. Y la particularidad que tuvo nuestro trabajo fue que habitualmente se espera que la gente vaya a la universidad, pero en este caso la universidad salió a la calle también. Así que en ese ida y vuelta de ir de la calle a la universidad, de la universidad a la calle, se lograron muchos contactos, conexiones y ampliaciones de un trabajo que ya se viene haciendo hace más de 2 años o 1 año y medio en el barrio de Colegiales en conjunto con barrios vecinos. Quizás nuestro mayor aprendizaje fue volver a tener fe en que en momentos muy duros, como estamos pasando en Argentina, la fuerza comunitaria hace fuerza y logra seguir construyendo un tejido político, porque si bien la actividad del compostaje puede parecer que no tiene nada que ver con la política, nosotros consideramos que grupos como este, que tienen que tomar decisiones sobre su propia gestión, pero también sobre cómo relacionarse con el Estado o con la universidad o con otras personas, estamos haciendo política en acto. Y el otro aprendizaje que quiero subrayar, y con esto ya le paso la palabra a mis compañeros, es que nosotros somos un grupo activista que integramos distintas generaciones. Nuestro integrante más chiquito tiene 2 años y los mayores no voy a decir la edad porque dicen en Argentina que queda feo, pero somos grandes, somos personas grandes. Y en el medio hay varias generaciones, con lo cual la transmisión intergeneracional de conocimiento se verifica en una actividad tan concreta como es aprender a compostar, reciclar y volver a la tierra lo que es de la tierra. Le paso la palabra a Pablo y después seguramente David querrá agregar algo. Gracias.
Bueno, nada, para reforzar un poco lo que decía Ana Inés, somos un grupo de vecinas y vecinos autoconvocados, nos manejamos mayoritariamente a través de un grupo sí de WhatsApp, que es donde establecemos las comunicaciones, y algo que venimos hablando es que ese grupo de WhatsApp por el que interactuamos es un grupo que se encuentra abierto, así que van participando diferentes personas que están interesadas en lo que es el compostaje. Sí les quería compartir a través del chat, estaba buscando los links, tenemos un usuario de Instagram donde pueden conocer un poquito más, y también lo que les voy a compartir a través del chat es el mapa de las 12 composteras que inauguramos en el barrio de Colegiales. Pero bueno, como también fuimos comentando, independientemente de que este es un grupo autogestionado que surgió o que inauguró su primera compostera en el 2024, tenemos aprendizajes que vienen de otros barrios. El barrio vecino, el de Chacarita, arrancó un poquito antes y tiene otras composteras funcionando, y así se va creando una red que es de vecinos y, como comentaban en la presentación, ¿no? Una organización autogestionada, autoconvocada, bueno, que va sufriendo o va transitando un camino, pero que, bueno, vamos viendo ahí cómo se interactúa con la parte privada y con la parte estatal. Es otra cosa interesante y que vamos recorriendo y vamos viendo a medida que vamos haciendo. Ana comentaba este contacto con la universidad, y bueno, fue una muy linda experiencia. Ahí estoy viendo las fotos, que no había visto esta presentación y me pone muy contento. Fue el día del 2 de noviembre, la que está en el centro, una celebración que hicimos por el Día de los Muertos, vinculado con el compostaje. Muy lindo. David, te paso la palabra.
Yo completo las cosas que dijeron Ana Inés y Pablo. Simplemente quería agregar que, como también tenemos un grupo de Instagram, de repente hay gente que se conecta desde lugares que nosotros ni siquiera nos imaginamos. Por ejemplo, en algún momento apareció en el grupo de WhatsApp, porque está el QR para sumarse al grupo de WhatsApp también en el Instagram, un vecino de la ciudad de Río Gallegos, o Calafate creo que era en el sur en la Patagonia Argentina, que también quería llevar esta iniciativa a su barrio. Pasa también que hay integrantes del club que se mudan de barrio, el mismo Pablo, por ejemplo, que hace 2 años vivía en Colegiales y ahora empezó la red de composteras en otro barrio de Buenos Aires que se llama Santa Rita. Bueno, y así como que la red se va multiplicando. Y está bueno que además eh, todas las redes que se van armando de este tipo están a su vez comunicadas. Se organizan algunas actividades en conjunto. Este último fin de semana se hizo una plantación en un parque público que está por ser, digamos, está en proceso de construcción en el barrio de Palermo y nosotros nos pidieron que llevemos tierra compostada para la plantación de árboles y bueno, y así se va multiplicando de barrio en barrio. Eso simplemente, como que las redes se abren y se multiplican y uno, como el grupo es abierto y la gente se va sumando, en este momento hay más o menos 100 integrantes del grupo de WhatsApp, muchos ni los conocemos, pero de repente algún integrante dice, yo conozco a la directora de una escuela y se podría poner ahí una compostera y hoy, al mismo tiempo que estamos acá, hay dos compañeras que ni Pablo ni yo ni Ana conocemos, dos madres de ese jardín que están hablando con la directora para promover una compostera nueva allí. Eso, como que no hay límite, por decirlo así. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ana Inés, Pablo, David. Creo que este es un ejemplo perfecto de cómo la universidad le abre las puertas a la comunidad para trabajar juntos y tomarse la tarea seria de construir un nuevo sistema. Es como el objetivo que está, digamos, en los pilares del Center de Next System Studies. Entonces creo que es un ejemplo muy concreto. Muchas gracias por compartir como estas experiencias tan íntimas, locales y tan de conexiones profundas en los territorios. Gracias. So, okay, now we'll pass it to Duluth, Minnesota. Catherine, are you there? I don't see you.
Hi, everybody. I'm here. I don't know if you can see me. Yes. So, welcome to everybody. And I'm coming again from Duluth on Lake Superior. And I'll just say a few words about the teach-in we had last fall. The format for it was to invite an Indigenous leader, Gwendolyn Duke, to speak at the university and with outreach to the community, activists and others and students, bring them all together and have her talk about all her economic work, place-based economic work here in northern Minnesota on her reservation and on her ancestral lands. So the focus here was both on localizing the economy. So it was on energy sovereignty. So a focus on solar and a focus on food sovereignty. So there is a lot on agriculture, the kinds of crops that are being grown. And by the way, Winona is a rural economic developer, and so her training is exactly for this type of economy. And in our region, we could learn a lot from Winona about local economic systems, relocalizing them as a form of next systems. And in particular, most beautifully, we were able to incorporate an Ojibwe worldview here, a value system, and compare that to the kind of global economic system that we live in. But also, we were able to look at both a Ojibwe worldview and also, again, the local worldview. I want to address a little bit the idea of how participation worked here and what strategy. So here, this speaker, it was very traditional in many ways. On the other hand, what we did more recently was and just on Earth Day this week, we did a kind of follow-up to this, and we did another teach-in. This time we built on this and we stayed in our region in the sense of the Great Lakes region, and we invited the sustainability officer from the city of Ann Arbor, who had started a new systems for utility, and the city is the owner of it, and it uses only clean energy technologies. So she taught us how to do it and we had a workshop structure for participation. So all tables had activists, students, technology people, community activists, and others. And our speaker who started this sustainable energy system in Ann Arbor, she told us how she did it. And then we tried to do it in our own communities in the workshop at the tables, and then we shared. So that was a really new participation structure for our teach-in, which I will continue to use. We also was Earth Day. This is like Christianity knew how to do this. They set their they set their new agenda for their new system of religion over the pagan one. So we also placed ours over Earth Day. And we, for Earth Day, so we had music, we had food. It wasn't but we had it at the university. And so we did bring all these things together. And I want to say that for my own work here, which I will continue to work on, is I focus on ownership, local community ownership. In particular, I use solar technology for that, for my own work. And I do believe that some of these the new clean energy technologies offer new potential and strategies for community ownership. They can be scaled differently. So they allow us to enter the system of energy transition and sustainability with a different scale of ownership. Here in Duluth, we are facing our investor-owned utility was just taken over by a private equity firm, BlackRock. And they came in and with Google in a non-disclosure agreements all over the place. We didn't know, and are building a mega scale data center here. And it's, so we have a huge fight ahead of us with this. So one thing we can do here is when we focus on energy and renewable energy, which is theirs is not, they're going to bring gas plants and others, that the technology can lead. We had technology people in our room, in our teach-in, and economists to show us how it looks. So I guess that strategy of bringing all that together. The last thing I'll say here is that for myself, I'm an anthropologist like Daisy, and also I understand that the tools that humans need to work at the different scales. Now we've got AI, we've got all kinds of tools to work at a particular kind of scale. What we need to build also are the platforms. As the group that just was using WhatsApp showed us, that these new platforms for this new kind of community scale. So I do a lot with that, with solar, to create a community trust ownership model for solar energy called the Solar Commons. And you can look at that project online, the Solar Commons project. So I'll just leave it at that. But again, we had last year we brought in an indigenous perspective with a very traditional participatory structure. This year, we really expanded that into a workshop and expanded our region over into Michigan. And on next year, and for our next one, we want to our plan is to work with the University of Michigan and our university. And we're going to do our teach-in. By the way, the first teach-in for First Earth Day was at the University of Michigan campus. So we were excited now to think about next year using that structure, and we are building on that and are going to stay focused on food sovereignty and energy sovereignty and local relocalization ownership. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That is very inspiring. It always makes me so happy to hear talking about this. And this concept of community ownership is something that I imagine, people in different campuses and different communities are. Can we please silence the microphone? Thank you so much. The concept of community ownership, I imagine, is like a thing that it brings different challenges, right? Depending on the place that you are located from. So I would be happy maybe to come back to this subject in the discussion part, how the other organizers experience the community ownership in their own work with the communities beyond the university. Okay, so now I'll pass it to April and the Chicago Fox. Thank you.
Hey, all. So joining you from Chicago, I'm so happy and grateful that some members from our planning team are here. So I'm going to say a few things and then pass it over to you, Kelly and Howard. I think that's everyone who's here, but if not, just jump in. Yes, so in Chicago, just starting from like my own positionality and story when we were organizing. So I had just moved to Chicago about a year and a half prior when we began organizing. So my approach was in part, coming from a place of knowing some of the amazing things that were already in motion within Chicago, which is of course such an amazing just bastion of historical and current organizing around things that could all be called next system, growing community power, growing alternatives. So it really began with sitting down and trying to listen and learn about what's already here. I began with sitting down with my good friend Howard Rosing at the Steen Center at DePaul University, who has a long history of working deeply in partnership with community, and especially around food systems, but many other things as well. And so we did a lot of talking about, the framing and the phrasing of, we don't necessarily want to come out hard with like, this is about next system because no one's heard of that here. But what is the spirit and what is the energy and what are the things that people are really grappling with here? So that informed how we framed it. And then we built a small planning team through those who I and he knew had energy and interest around that. So really our framing was around, ownership of our city. That was the theme that was really running across at the time, and it's ongoing, of course, the resistance to the onslaught of white supremacist and authoritarian invasion of our city, especially attacking our immigrant neighbors and communities. So this idea, hands off Chicago, this is our city, but then thinking about what if we took this further and thinking about ownership broadly, right? How do we really truly own the systems within the city? So the way that we decided to structure this, first, we really tried to lead with a lot of partnership, as you can see in our flyer. We reached out to folks who we knew were already doing this work and asked them if they would be willing to be a partner. And we structured it so that as much as possible, the teach-in in Chicago could be lifting up what was already in motion, what was already here. For me personally, I come from a background in community building and organizing called asset-based community development, which is rooted in the idea that, one of the ways to make strong communities, and I would say a strong next system, is starting with what's there, connecting it, making it visible, making the invisible visible, and building strong relationships, and really investing in and infusing energy into what is already growing, right, in our communities and across our city. So the way that we structured it was we did have one central gathering, which was on a Sunday at a local church that had a beautiful history of community building, and could use some of the income as well. So we wanted to flow some energy there. And we structured that using a combination of highly participatory processes. So one was using asset mapping. So we had folks go around and name what they knew about in different kind of key areas, economy, environment, youth, neighborhoods, that was going on that either they were involved in or knew about in the city. So we went around the room and did that. And then we also used open space, which is a way you basically have the folks in the room build the agenda and come forward and say, these are the things I would like to talk about, I would like to share about. And then you create a simple structure for people to find others who would like to join them. So that was the largest part of this gathering. We also heard from two elder organizers, Prexy Nesbitt, had a long history of organizing in Chicago, and our elder, Pat Devine Reed. The other aspect of the teach-in was that we lifted up and also made accessible other things that were already going on in that 2-week time period of the global teach-in window. So next slide. Sorry, this was the photos from that convergence. We also had a panel with some wonderful folks who were doing work in the city. Next slide, please. So these were some of the events that we incorporated. We had a large list of events that we wanted to lift up. I basically we put together a Google Doc, and had some like what's it called, sections that we could fill in, just making this accessible to people to go find these things that were going on. We worked with our partners to communicate to us. These are things that they would like lifted up. One thing that I found really wonderful was many people who we reached out to that some of them we knew, some of them it were kind of a new introduction. So this was a great relationship building process. They were not really used to that way of being asked to partner. They're like, okay, wait, you just want to lift up and celebrate what we're doing? And we're like, yes. And they said, okay. So that was really lovely. We called this the Local Tapestry of Alternatives. We got permission from the beautiful global initiative called the Global Tapestry of Alternatives, and I encourage you to check out. And we also had some key featured events that we made, special flyers for. One kind of going along those lines of making the resources of the Academy available to the community. And I stole this idea from another teach-in, was we asked local professors who were teaching things related to Next System if they would be willing to open up their classes in that 2-week period to the larger community, and we would advertise it. So Stacy Sutton, an amazing powerhouse of community wealth building and social and racial justice work, not just in Chicago, but around the country, opened up her course, which was on community wealth building, and made that available via Zoom for people to join. We also had student-led peace circles through DePaul University, led by Joe Rice, and a student day of action that we lifted up. This is an old, a slightly updated version of the slides, which we can share in the chat. Does have links to videos from the gathering, and from the tapestry that you can check out, and a few other links as well. I'll pass it over to Howard or Kelly if you want to add anything, as well as like where we're going next.
Well, I can come on camera real briefly. Sorry, I'm not feeling great today, but I'll speak for a minute. Can you all see me? I can't see myself for some reason with whatever view I'm in, which is strange. But wanted to just second, I know April mentioned open space, but is a wonderful methodology that I highly recommend you all think about as you plan future teach-ins. I got to experience it for the first time at an event at UC Berkeley around public health just a few months before, actually. And it's just a very special opportunity for folks to agenda set and sort of speak on exactly what they're feeling in the moment. It also helps with organizing because you don't have to plan agendas and speakers in advance, and it's much more organic. But the sort of height for me was there was a very experienced organizer around regenerative economy who at the end of the event said it was the most popular education event she had ever experienced. And so I just thought that was a good sign that we were using that as one piece was a sign in the right direction. But in terms of next steps in Chicago, thanks, Debbie. So ours is maybe a little unique. We didn't have a lot of university involvement. We had some framers and some key special events as part of the tapestry that were from some of the universities in Chicago, but a lot of it was small community-based organizations doing sort of radical change work. And some of the feedback was wonderful to have the conversation, but what do we do next? And not wanting to wait for April 2027 to keep the conversation going. So one of the things we're considering is a conversation where we do a monthly or bi-monthly gathering to sort of have an opportunity for people to pilot or test ideas or share best practices in community while building relationships. And so doing sort of open networking events. We actually, I think someone mentioned Cola Nut Collaborative, but a few of us were at a Cola Nut Collaborative event a few months ago. And there was opportunity for folks to pitch and get offers of support and do offers and needs work, and realize that there is kind of need and space for that in Chicago. And so continuing opportunity for folks to frame and pitch and collaborate on ideas and work is sort of where we're thinking of going. I don't know if I framed that well, April, but that's what we're thinking.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks, Ben, for the reminder to speak slowly. I get excited and talk fast. Howard, is there anything you would like to add? I don't know if you're able to come on.
Yes, I can come on audio. I'm too mobile to come on video at the moment, but thank you, everyone. I really appreciated jumping in the middle of the composting presentation in Buenos Aires. And I would definitely want to follow up with you. That's my work on food systems, and also in Duluth or in the Minnesota project. Also really incredibly important work connected to food sovereignty issues. So with that, I will say that I've been mostly an advisor, as April has said, and also as Kelly said, I think there needs to be more university involvement. One of the problems in Chicago, one of the problems in the United States is universities work in silos of one another, from one another, and not only within the universities, but between each other. And we're not as well organized as universities in Chicago around social movement building. And there is the roots of that organizing happening. So I think, as you know, in terms of whose work and perspectives do we want to be sure is represented, we want to bring in the power of the university students more in Chicago. I think that's critical. I direct a community engagement center at DePaul, which is the urban university of Chicago, with a very social justice mission, and also houses the Asset-Based Community Development Institute, which April mentioned as a framework. And with that, I want to also add that I would also like to see how we might think about bringing next systems conversations inside prisons. DePaul is currently the only university right now teaching inside Cook County Jail, which is the largest Cook County jail in the country, in the United States. And I found in our work inside prisons, we've also worked at Stateville Prison, which is a maximum security prison outside Chicago for 12 or 13 years we were there. And I have found that some of the most amazing ideas and organizing comes from our incarcerated students that are taking courses through DePaul inside. And so what I would love to do is bring this inside. That's what I will suggest at our gathering planning committee meeting. I have a number of other ideas, but I'm gonna leave it at that. Thanks so much for including me, April.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I'll just close. This has been such a wonderful experience, and looking forward, we already have ideas of ways of building in some processes, some things we could link together. Inspired by Catherine, your great thinking about how can the local work you're doing already with partners be linked to this global effort of teach-ins, building up towards 2027, but not waiting until 2027 to do some things together. And also, I'll just add that one of the processes of asset-based community development is asset mapping. So this has just been such a great, live, real catalyst for us to build our asset map of next system. So I think that's one of the next steps too, is just getting more collective about that, getting even more organized around what the asset map looks like and the way that we weave the pieces of it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, April, and all the amazing organizers from Chicago. That idea of taking the next system work to the prisons just is blowing my mind right now. I'm already thinking about multiple possibilities also within, reconciliation processes, reparation processes, that is more than needed also. Thank you so much for bringing that into the room. And I'm also very curious to hear a little bit more about the methodologies and best practices. Maybe we can leave it also for the discussion part to keep it in mind. I'm very curious. With that in mind, I'll pass it to UVM. Last but definitely not least, UVM folks. I'm only seeing Matt, my friend Matt. Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, April, all the organizers. Thank you, translators. I know we're approaching the end of this section and want to get to the discussion, so I will probably keep my comments fairly brief. I only have this one slide, and I think it covers a lot of what you need to know about what we did last November. So our focus was really on also, in some sense, taking inspiration from global tapestry of alternatives. We have been developing, I guess, for in an academic context, you might call it a research group with a focus on a regional tapestry of alternatives. And so we are based at University of Vermont in Burlington, Vermont, which has a long history of very interesting alternative models for governance, for decision making, for politics, for political economy, and so on. And not only historical, but they're active, many of them now. So part of what we're trying to do is bring them into dialogue. So the broad topic was exploring regional alternatives to capitalism. Of course, it's more than just capitalism. It's colonialism. It's many different modes of oppression, patriarchy, and so on. But we chose to go with the term alternatives to capitalism because we feel like it really speaks to the moment. And it also is a way, given that we were based at the university, to pique the interest, especially of the student community that actively are looking for alternatives, which is inspiring and something that we want to be able to meet as we go. So what do some of those alternatives look like in our region? Well, you can see in this lovely graphic that one of our grad students helped to put together. And by the way, the whole organizing that we did was to a great extent based on the efforts of a wonderful group of graduate students. Some of them who would have liked to have been here today, but were not able to make it. So some of them that we're looking at that are relevant in this region include the commons, which is a different relationship to people and place than certainly than private property and the history of the enclosures. It responds to that. Cooperatives and cooperative economy, the well-being economy, which now there is an active group working on well-being economy alliance in Vermont as just one opportunity there. Social ecology based largely on the work, but not only, of the Institute for Social Ecology, which has a history here related to Goddard College, but also to the work of Murray Bookchin. Some of you may know that work. Degrowth as well, which is coming out of, in some ways, ecological economics, which is a focus area of the work of the academic community whom I'm working with, which is a critique of the growth-based economics and its inequality and the way it is devastating life on Earth, and bioregioning as being another example, which really is getting sort of a third wave, maybe fourth wave across Turtle Island. So all of these we wanted to bring into dialogue. That was the basic orientation. And we were doing this at the university, and I'll come back to that. We were trying to reach different audiences. So we had over 3 days, we had several different types of events that covered things like indigenous economics, zine making. We had a panel of community members and leaders around these different alternatives. And then we had several different sessions that were organized by the students themselves on things like social movements, environmental justice, agroecology, and related topics. Again, we were trying to reach different audiences. So on the final day, we left the campus. We went to the Burlington Library and wanted to also have a community-based discussion there for people who were less inclined to make it to the university. So various formats, various audiences, largely based in an academic setting, but not exclusively. And so what advances did that bring? Well, certainly it developed connections, not just for us, but for the folks who are bringing into dialogue and for the community connecting to the university and vice versa, the students. It started to develop a bit of an approach to doing this work going forward, centered on dialogue across movement spaces. And it developed an interest. As April was saying earlier, you bring the idea of next systems into different community spaces. That's kind of an unknown quantity. So it developed an intrigue about what this means and what it can mean and how collectively we will make meaning of that direction. So those were big advances. In terms of what we're hoping to do from here, well, we're continuing to look at what expression this might take within the University of Vermont, what type of challenges we're seeing in taking that approach, and continuing to develop this kind of a method that bridges really academic spaces and community spaces. Some of the lessons and takeaways and questions that we still have that we're working through. One is thinking about space and our relationship to space. So the locations where these teach-ins occur matter, and how you show up in those spaces matter, and who grants you permission to show up in those spaces matters. I think that relates to some of the comments that were just made. So thinking about where it happens I think is especially important, and who is allowed to say that a teach-in can happen, when it can happen, where it can happen. We're also thinking about the relationship to community. This is an ongoing issue between, the academic space and the community space. And I find sometimes those distinctions are not helpful, because a lot of the people in academic spaces are also community organizers and members. And so it's not a clear distinction, but there is a distinction to be made, and thinking about how we relate to the community, but also how we relate to the university. Are we looking to institutionalize? Are we looking to gain some sense of legitimacy in this? I don't know. These are still questions that we have. And in terms of directions for looking forward, we're going to continue to lean into those relationships, and I think allow those to especially guide the shape that all of this next systems work takes at the University of Vermont. But we're also looking at maybe, again, on this plan of April 2027, thinking about the time period of Earth Day to May Day, somewhere within there, because there's already so much organizing going on around that time, both on the university and the surrounding communities. So I will leave it there, and thanks for your attention, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing those lessons from your teaching. I think, and also for bringing into the conversation how important the bridging between, academic space and community is, and also how, as next system builders, we also have a lot of work to do in that regard. In the bridging, it's also like a work by itself. So thank you for bringing that into the conversation. And now I would like to open the space for an
sorry.
open. Oh,
Sorry, real quick. We did have Carolyn, if Carolyn is on.
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
She
I'm
was,
on.
yeah,
From
from Arlington. And
I'm
Gabe, if you
sorry.
can, yeah, no, it's okay.
I didn't know. So
Hi.
I didn't have any in my list. Sorry, Caroline.
No
Take it
worries,
away.
I was a late join.
Welcome. You're more than welcome. Take it away. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm here as a representative from Nova Sun, which stands for Nova Solidarity Economy Network. They are the local chapter of Virginia Solidarity Economy Network, and we were founded in April 2025 at the Democratizing Nova Conference. So, as a year-old group, one of our first initiatives was a community dinner, just to kind of try and get to know as much of our community as was willing to show up, and share a meal together. So we had a community potluck. It was a collective teach-in that invited community members to bring a dish, share for a night, getting to know our collective needs and solutions. And so neighbors from all over the Nova region, not just Arlington, attended to discuss topics that affect our everyday lives. We had tables set up that had topics, specifically mutual aid, housing, worker cooperatives, and community organizing. And so we were able to sit together and with the assistance of translation, we're able to talk cross-culturally and cross-linguistically with people that we share spaces with every day. And we did recognize a shared need for recognition that we all have dignity, that it needs to be respected by the way in which we develop our communities, and that sovereignty belongs to the people that live on the land and care for it as well. Yeah, so I think some primary thoughts that came out of the discussion was that dignified living is central to the conversation and includes systemic improvements to public safety, land availability, and opportunities for business development. So yeah, that was a shorter presentation, but thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I'm curious to know more about other developments during your teaching and also the methodologies, especially the community potluck. So as I was saying, now we are opening a discussion time. So thank you so much for sharing this very inspiring and significant work that you all are doing from your own territories and from different capacities and roles and in your own communities. So we would now like to invite you, organizers and other participants, this is an open discussion, to share other or any similarities, patterns, moments that stood out as you listen to each other's stories and conversation, as well as questions that might have emerged during hearing the other organizers talking about how their experiences went during their teachings. Is there someone else? Is there someone who would like to start us off? Is there any
Seems
questions?
that the issue that was posted in the chat regarding, I think Kermit posted it, is an interesting one. I'm just saying this because several of us responded. So I was wondering whether we should take that up. I have 10 more minutes and I have to go, but it seems that that's an important issue.
Nina, since you have to run, would you have any thoughts you'd like to offer up on that?
What I was starting to answer in the chat, and then I thought maybe we could open the discussion, is that, for example, in our case, was sort of the other way around. We started from a neighborhood project, and we then linked to the university. It just so happens that I am an academic. I'm a professor at the university and a national researcher in Argentina, yet I always define myself first as an activist. And so in that way, from my perspective, what happened to our Next System idea and project was that it was so grounded at the local neighborhood, which in turn is connected through a railroad. There's a train that goes from that neighborhood directly into my university. It's 4 stations away, so that's very simple too, geographically, I mean. And then there is the fact that the activity we organized happened in our 2nd semester, and several students who took the course where I networked with the local project expanded the idea of this composting activity to their families, to other people in their own neighborhoods. So geographically, that expanded more and more. But again, it was in their heads, in the students' heads even. It wasn't so much a university project, I should say, but a locally grounded activity, hands-on thing that gathers people together. And as I said, when I talked, acts as a place to rehearse, so to speak, what politics could look like when you take and make decisions on the ground. So that was a thought I had regarding at least what we did and our experience. I also want to add that our university system is public 100%. People do not pay 8 cents to come to the university. So that's, I think, a big difference. Our salaries are horrible, of course. That's a big difference too.
Catherine.
So yeah, so taking off on this idea, so starting in the neighborhood, and I think Matthew, am I right? You ended in a library, in a city library, right? So I'm thinking too, one of the things we did in ours this year, our teach-in a few days ago, is that we were thinking about ownership, and we were in our library at the university, and we had invited people from that had authority in cities, from several cities around our region. So they had some authority, and they were going to learn about how to create with their city, leverage some of that authority to do this clean energy utility. So we looked at this idea of a utility as this system that exists, and using these clean energy technologies to change it. And so that would allow us to have energy efficiencies, geothermal, solar, on-bill, financing. So a very complex package. But then the idea at the end was, so anyway, we had city officials, we had, activists, we had engineers, we had, I'm trying to and students as well. And they then worked together at tables. And we had a city official, as the sustainability director from Ann Arbor. In the end, the idea was that, libraries themselves might be such an important piece here to stay with. And so what we were thinking is libraries, before the nation state, the library is a pre-modern institution, one of the original circulatory economies, right? And so, I'm not surprised that we started there, Matthew, you ended there. In some sense, we were thinking that the right place in a city for what we were trying to do for a ownership structure utility, you have to educate the democracy on this, is to have living lab, have your library, your public library be a kind of living lab for this, not just technologies per se, but how they work together as interconnected systems. So as a utility. And so then you get into ownership, et cetera. So I think next year we will do this based in libraries, connected through libraries. The university has a library, and we'll connect that. But the library itself and that kind of institution probably will be the frame, or rather place, because everybody knows what that is and what that looks like, and that it's doable. We can do things like that. So anyway, we'll do even the education base there, and et cetera. It has that complexity in the structure that we think of in next systems, that it is, its embeddedness and its endurance over time, and many, many things. So, I'm just throwing that out there that, yes, if you start in a neighborhood, maybe your neighborhood library. I also want to note that many neighborhoods are starting, and the sustainability office in Ann Arbor too, they're starting in to do their utility work in underserved neighborhoods, starting with their library. Why? Because they can put city assets there. They can do a geothermal thing that connects several houses or buildings right there. Then they do a little solar on that can be shared in 2 buildings. So microgrid. And they can start at that scale. It can be a learning space. So yeah, and then universities can join, and we can start thinking even as a map of libraries or something. So throwing that out there.
Thanks, Catherine. Ben, and then Kelly.
Okay. This is a really exciting conversation, and I know some people will need to go in a minute, but I know others may be able to stay. So I'm certainly willing to stay for as long as we're going. Yeah, I mean, I think that for this next round of teach-ins, we have some lead time, so we can do many different things. And we've heard about prison education and organizing, and that set off a lot of lights in my head. I was thinking about all the people I know who do that work in different parts of the U.S. already who could be brought in and who would probably be very interested in Next System in making those connections with people within who are doing organizing within prisons in the carceral system. I think we've talked a lot about libraries in terms of organizing, and actually we need librarians as another sort of set of people that we need to be learning from and organizing with, and we need them so that we can organize our own library because they have expertise. As a sociologist, I have my expertise, and as a former lawyer, I have that, but as a former cab driver, if you want a lift, I can help you. But the point is we need the librarians, right? And then we've also been talking, just to put this out there, about what in the United States we call K through 12, which is to say primary and secondary education, right? And we've been having conversations with leaders of various teachers unions in Chicago and Massachusetts and other places. And so that's something else I want to encourage us to think about collectively, because, for example, next week, in the place that started International Workers' Day, the schools are shutting down for the most part because the city, the public school system, working with the teachers union, have basically said, we're releasing students to go to May Day protests, right? So just think about what kind of a pedagogical moment that will be. So this is all very important, but I also want to say there is a reason why universities are so central to this project, because one of the things we're working to do is to build Next System studies and to engage in the struggle for higher education in a different kind of way. And we have been in this fight. As people know, universities are under attack all over the world. That has been especially true in the United States of late as well. And this is a struggle, and this is a place in which roughly half the population comes through our colleges and universities in this society, and it can be transformative. So universities are a site of struggle, but they also have unique capabilities that we are working to mobilize. And there are different ways to build the movement, and this is one way that is particular to this community. Right? There's nobody else who's doing it in quite the way that we're doing this work right now with higher education. So we have a particular job to do. We can't replace the labor movement. We're part of it. We can't replace the community organizations. We're part of those. We can't replace other social movement forces. But for those of us who are in academia, we have to engage. And April, you asked me to say some closing things, so that was my way of bringing some of that in.
Yeah.
No, I'm not closing. I'm not closing. Pass.
No, sorry, Kelly, I'll pass it to you in 1 second. I just want to be respectful of people's time. I know it's 1:15 already. So for the people leaving now, I just want to remind you that we have an upcoming invitation for you to join to the new wave of Next System studies happening in April next year, 2027. I am sharing some resources in the chat as tools and resources that you can explore in order to commit with the work that we are doing. And yes, so with that said, yes, people are welcome to join us for the extra 15 minutes. Please stay if you can. If you can't, that's okay. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll pass it to you, Kelly.
No worries. Thank you. I guess I was just thinking, and I'm someone who hasn't been in academic spaces since doing my master's, although I'm considering the PhD. But I think the importance of sort of this is a very multimodal thing, and it's not a one-time event. And so thinking about the opportunity for cross-pollination, and I think it's powerful for the universities to be a driver of this, but see the community as equal partner in owning and driving, and what does that opportunity for overlap look like? And so thinking in terms of how we did it in Chicago, I think for students to have the chance to get out and learn in community and connect in community spaces where they can be active in movements beyond just service learning, which is one of the typical opportunities, but I think if in the context of a teach-in they can get into community spaces where organizing's already happen and connect and build relationships, that's really powerful to complement classroom learning. But also the few sort of university things that did happen in Chicago were things that were already happening that community where members were invited into. So it wasn't a special event the university hosted, but there were lectures on economics, on other things that were opened up to community members to attend, or Peace Circle training that students were doing at DePaul that were opened up. So I think sort of thinking it as that opportunity to not, the university owns it, but to bring community members into things, conversations already happening in the university that are powerful, but then bring university folks into community and sort of weave that connection is really powerful.
Thanks, Kelly. Is there someone else in the stack?
I just want to invite, as folks are leaving, I know folks do need to leave and we would love to have you stay, but please feel free to share in the chat as well, anything in particular you're taking away, anything that inspired you, a phrase or an idea, or anything, any idea that you're excited to put into practice as you go. I'll open it up for other thoughts. I'm just like kind of stewing in inspiration right now. I'm kind of curious, Matthew, because I know you've been thinking about organizing a teach-in. Not to put you on the spot, but if there's any ideas or are there anything you want to share about your all's planning or thinking right now in Athens?
Well, I don't have a lot to share on that quite yet.
Oh, and actually, I meant Matthew Apperson, but Matt, yes.
Oh, please. Good. I'm glad you weren't asking me.
Yeah, no worries, Matthew. I had the same question. I was like, wait, I think it was me.
Sorry. Matt.
Yeah, no, I just absolutely was like having so many ideas sparking of like how many people I want to invite here into a process like this across so many different issue areas that, yeah, there was a quote, I think maybe the first slide that was like, we're doing so many things, but they're not connected. That feels so true here in Athens. And I'm just excited by like, oh, this is all about connective tissue. So there's just so many people who aren't talking to each other right now. And I know that's probably like a lot of us in that situation. So I just so appreciate this framing and to like the deliberate encouragement to connect the tissue to make this a more concerted activity together. So that's what's getting me excited right now for April next year.
Thanks.
Hey. Lily.
Hello, everyone. So great to be here. Thank you. Just related to the last comment Matt made about the connective tissue, one thing that I was thinking about throughout the discussions today is the importance of translation. And I was thinking about university students who take different languages, and that as a potential way to connect communities using, having students that are studying various things, but bringing their language skills. Like, for example, I have a French bachelor's degree, and I just try to use my French wherever I can, just kind of willy-nilly. So that I'm thinking, wow, I could potentially use that for translation. And then it also made me think about students who and people who are like first generation, and how they live in this space of translating. And I was thinking about maybe there's a way to bring those folks in, and I was thinking about a way to maybe like supply them with some funds. Like, how can we pay them for the services that they're already doing, and how can we use that to engage and further build our next system studies? So I hope that made sense, but that's just sort of what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, Lily, that's such an important question, the one that you are posing regarding the languages. That's something that I definitely been trying to do, and we have achieved that to some extent in our community and our next system work to, how to kind of like translate these next system studies, methodologies and theories into other cultural backgrounds and find commonalities, but also enrich the school that we are building, right? I think that is connected with the language and how we communicate. But that is also connected to the storytelling, and storytelling is told according to the language you speak. So thank you so much for bringing this into this conversation. Very, very important topic. And yeah, is there?
I think Ben
Yeah,
had.
I don't know if you can, yeah, maybe it's because my hand.
Ben, oh yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, Ben.
right, that's right. So yeah, I mean, actually, in Lily's point, I was just thinking about George Mason University, and we are not unique in this sense, but we are one of the most international and diverse, universities in the country and probably in the world, right? So we are majority first generation college students, majority first generation U.S. Citizens. Or immigrants, students who are immigrants and are not citizens yet. But what that means is that it's in the public schools and then on the soccer fields, but then especially at this big public university that they're together for the first time because there's all these communities, Kurdish and Gambian and, Palestinian and Tibetan and so on. And so we should think, and there's another argument for the university I just want to make, right? And there are many universities that perform this function in North America.
Sure. One thing that's coming up for me around this discussion, Matthew E., thank you for naming about the connective tissue. And one thing I'm finding comforting, right, and that helps shape my organizing is also recognizing that there's many people who are talking about the need for connective tissue, right? So for me, one of the first steps, both with my own, organizing with my friends here in Chicago, as well as us thinking about Next System, is kind of like with the Global Tapestry of Alternatives and a lot of our partners with the Next System, around the question of translation. We recognize each other, right? And we recognize that we might be using some different language. It's like the finger pointing at the moon in Buddhism, right? Like we all have the sense of what the moon is. We're using different fingers to point at it. So that's one of my starting points, I think, here in the city and that we're working on with organizing is, really building those strong relationships with those who see the need for the connective tissue and recognize that it's not going to just happen magically on its own. Like I liked what you said, Matthew, about it's intentional, it's strategic, it's focused. And, from an ABCD background, like that role of the connector, the role of mapping what's there and connecting it, it's often very invisible work, but it's so critical. I know, anyway, organizations like Muslim for Just Futures are doing amazing ecosystem building work and a lot of other groups. And I do keep finding Next System as a really, really broad frame that I often don't find other places, but people are still doing it just using different language. So I think on a local level, I'd love to see how this building process towards April 2027 can help make more visible all those folks who are holding that, connective tissue and ecosystem energy. And we're looking to work together. And I also want to name, for anyone who's interested in organizing your own teach-in, that our team is also available to help with that weaving work through our own relationships to help identify, you probably know a lot of people already or through people in your city or on your campus or in your neighborhood. But we're happy to help with that as well, just through the people we know, who else might be in your area that we could connect you up with.
Thanks, April. Is there any other comments, questions, remarks? I see some comments in the chat. Literature on other languages, yeah, that is also important. Storytelling. Okay. Okay, if there's no more comments or remarks, we can maybe close the session, April.
Yeah, I think, right. Ben, I don't know if you want to share anything. I'm just so grateful, really excited and energized, especially grateful. Thank you so much for my Chicago team for being here. And we already got some brainstorming going. So like, I'm taking that away as well.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I would like to leave this meeting also. I don't know why I cannot stop thinking about bees. My friend Virgelina, who passed away 2 days ago, she used to call all her organizers bees, because we do both things, right? We build up honeycombs, but we are also beekeepers and bee protectors. So I would like to leave this meeting thinking about bees and protecting the bees as well. So thank you for this huge honeycomb community of next system builders. I appreciate you a lot.